What if the messiest parts of your life, the parts that you never want anyone to see, were actually the birthplace of your greatest mission? In today's episode of Her Purpose, I'm sitting down with the incredibly powerful Stacey Reed, a woman whose story will crack your heart wide open in the best way. From a childhood filled with trauma to finding herself stuck in toxic relationships and barely recognizing and not even liking the woman in the mirror, Stacey's journey is proof that you can rise from the ashes of your past and build something truly beautiful. Through sobriety, transformational leadership, and choosing to bet on herself again and again, Stacey has discovered her purpose: to help others create 10 out of 10 relationships and lives, starting with the one they have with themselves. If you've ever believed your story disqualifies you from greatness, let this conversation remind you, you are the author and you get to write the ending. So take a breath, open your heart, and ask yourself, what if my mess is exactly what qualifies me to make the impact that I dream of? Oh my gosh, this is so cool. So I don't know you personally, but I feel like I know you because I've coached with your husband. So it's so interesting. And I know that you guys are doing amazing things in the program that you're running. You've been running a private coaching business for over 4 years now.
Over 4 years.
So I'm just super curious. How does it feel every day to know that you're making an impact on a deeper level than just helping people with their businesses?
Now it is like living in my purpose is so freeing. I had no idea how much energy I was expelling, being misaligned and not being in the flow and in my purpose, that now it's like I have more time than ever before. I have more satisfaction than ever before. It's like, wow, this is wild. I was always told, find a vision. And once you have a vision, it's like, oh, wow. I wish I would have done it sooner.
So how did you get there? What was the catalyst that helped you define your vision?
The first thing was really recognizing how unsatisfied I was. And it started about 6 years ago. Really, my transformation officially started a little over 6 years ago when I decided to get sober from alcohol. And it was this family legacy that internally I always knew, but because I wanted to be better than, that was the force that was driving me instead of my vision, instead of, this place of purpose. And so that was the catalyst. Enough was enough. I literally couldn't imagine another day like continuing on the way that I was, and I couldn't imagine another day not continuing on. I was right square, like in the middle of it. And so I made a decision. And in that first year, I still was in this relationship that I wasn't happy in. I was in a career that I wasn't really happy in as well. And I just continued to focus on myself, focus on loving myself, growing self development. That once, almost 2 years in, I was recommended a transformational leadership course. And so I did it thinking that I would help my business. I wasn't even...
And you're still in the prior business at this point. You're not in coaching.
I'm not in coaching at all. In fact, I never even knew that there was coaching or wanted to be a coach. I had done business consulting. I was in marketing. I was an entrepreneur. But as far as coaching goes, I thought to myself, I'm surely not qualified to be a coach at all. And so I joined and decided to complete this leadership training. And I did not know it would be a complete overhaul on my entire life, who I was being, and then just change my trajectory forever in the best way possible.
I want to go back though. You had that decision, but what was going on in your world that caused you to make that decision? Was it a moment, a single experience, or did you just wake up one day thinking this isn't how I'm supposed to be living my life?
So, it has to be like a power greater than myself, God, It was like this spiritual awakening because I was begging and begging, help me. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be in this position over and over. And then it's like one day I just had enough.
I want to dive into that. When you say in this position, financially, were you in a good spot, but in your relationship or just in yourself, in your relationship to yourself or your relationship to somebody else?
So in particular, myself, I looked in the mirror and I did not like who I saw, not only from like a physical aspect, but I did not like the person that I was looking at. That's the whole reason why I quit drinking, was because I just wanted to look in the mirror and like who I saw. I had never actually been in that position before. And so that was the catalyst for me, was like, I really wanted to love myself. I wanted to have what I saw other people had. I had money. I did have friends. I had all I had was one-sided relationships and, toxic, intimate relationships and just dissatisfaction in like what my life was. This just mediocrity. I knew that I was meant for more. I knew I had the potential for more, but I just had no idea where to start.
So you found this transformational leadership course. You think, I'm taking this for myself. I'm not changing my business. I'm not changing my relationships. I just want to work on me. How long was this course?
So right before I started the course, I got a divorce. Just kind of step back for a second, because it's like everything in this 6 years was so compacted and happened so fast that it's almost like my head was spinning. So I hit a year sober. And at that time, in the program of recovery, people say, if you allow God to do for you what you haven't been able to do for yourself, miracles will happen. And so I just focused on myself. And I had no idea how to get out of this. It's like I couldn't leave. I couldn't get away. And lucky for me, it ended up being the worst day of my life, but the best day of my life. This business that I was consulting for, it was my big client. And I had let all my little clients go. Well, I brought in my husband at the time. And long story short, he was doing some things he was not supposed to be doing and got caught. And I walked away completely not knowing what I was going to do or anything, just trusting myself. And
so
yeah,
this was your business, or you both were working for somebody else's business?
this was my consulting business that I brought him into.
And he basically got you fired from your one big client, and you had already let go all your other clients.
Yes.
Wow. That was nice of him.
Yes, I know. Right? But here's the thing.
Worst day, but the best day.
I always tell my clients that, there's a silver lining. And oftentimes, if we allow ourselves to get uncomfortable and step in, it will look really messy. Like the gift will come in the worst wrapping paper known to man. And for me, I just knew integrity was everything to me. And I had been living out of alignment and out of integrity with myself, that when this debacle happened, I walked away. I didn't have anything, but I knew that I was starting to love myself. I was starting to look in the mirror and like who I saw.
What things were you doing to get to that point? What daily habits, what rituals, what did you do to instill that or start that process?
Lucky for me, once again, I was exposed to the 12-step program, and I live and breathe and love the 12 steps. And the 12 steps are something that anybody actually can work if they want to. You don't have to have a drinking problem or any kind of problem special to, take part in them. And so I started looking at it, which I attribute the 12 steps in leadership. So leadership is like 12 steps on steroids. So I had dabbled my foot in to these levels of responsibility, of self-examination, of cleaning up your own messes, of owning who you are and showing up with your head held high and, standing for your greatness. And I started doing that one day at a time for an entire year until, boom, this incident happened. I walked away, and within 7 days, I was offered and found my dream job at the time. So there's a floral business, a pretty substantially big one here where I live in Wyoming. And she saw how smart I was at marketing and who I was, and just hired me right away. And so I spent 3 years smelling beautiful flowers, getting to be free and use my talents. And it was like one of the biggest gifts. She's an angel to me that I could have ever hoped for. And during that time, she always supported, her name is Melanie, and she always supported all of my dreams. And I said, I want to do this leadership program. And it's going to be, I think it was like 6 months long. It was very extensive and intricate. And I was supposed to go to San Diego in 2020, and I didn't even know how I was going to afford it or how I was going to do it. But I just signed up because I just knew that I had to figure this out. And luckily for me, again, 2020 was COVID. And so they had to shift this entire leadership program online. It never had been done before, but I was one of the pioneers and the group of 77 of us who got to shift completely online for the first time. And what that did was prove that you could have a 10 out of 10 relationship and a connection with someone, and you don't even have to be in the same space. And so I did it. And when I did, it so catapulted my life.
I'm just curious, going into this program, did you have the vision for yourself of potentially doing this down the road as a business? Or even at that point, you did not see yourself as a coach? You just wanted to better yourself?
Totally. I never had seen myself as a coach. I was just working on loving who I saw in the mirror, let alone, envisioning that I could stand for a transformed world or do anything that I'm currently in. So that just goes to show you don't have to know all of the ins and outs and the how to in order to get what you want. It's literally 90% intention. So because I had this intention, and because I was committed to it, the mechanism always appears. So you'll hear me say I was lucky. Really, I was generating the exact mechanism for me that would continue to offer me the direction that I wanted to go. So I took this course, and oh my gosh, it's like it reminds me of looking back to like high school, where you remember the days and the friends that you made. It was like that for me. It changed everything, and it was really hard. And this was actually where I met Anthony. He was not on my radar at all. He was one of the 77. He lived in Los Angeles. I live in Wyoming, and I was newly divorced. So get this. I'm in this 12-year marriage. It's horrendous. This incident, we'll just say, happens, and I walk away. And in Wyoming, as long as there's no contest to the divorce, you can get a 21-day divorce. So not only did I get no attorneys, no contest, I was able to get a 21-day divorce. He walked away. We don't share children together. Boom, out of my life. Poof, 12 years, gone.
Now, was that something that you wanted to do for a long time but were afraid to do, or never wanted to do?
Yeah, so I knew, looking back in hindsight, I knew getting into this relationship, it was just so represented my past and traumas, but I was not cognizant of it. And so
right.
Within the first, year, I knew I was in over my head, but I couldn't get out. Meaning I couldn't see how. I was so afraid of me and didn't like me and afraid of what people thought about me. And just, it was so hard that I couldn't figure it out. And so there many, many times I tried to leave. In fact, I was secretly taking things from my house and storing them in my mom's garage because I was trying to plan a big escape before I even got sober. And so that's how scary and crazy it was. But
you kept being drawn back in. Fear took over. What caused you to not make that move that you knew you needed to make?
Yeah. So when you're in an environment that you're being groomed. So I grew up in a household with an alcoholic, and it was abusive, sexually, physically, mentally, all of that. So I just recreated that.
That's what we do.
Yep. I just recreated it. And so I was being groomed. This man was 14 years older than me. I had small children at the time that we got together. So I was terrified. And I was just and this is not by any means saying that I'm not responsible for the decisions that I made, but I was just a walking wound and just recreating it because, most of everything in our life, if we're not intentional and conscious, it's subconscious. And we create it. And that's why we get in these loops and have these patterns. And so identifying that was a game changer in itself. And so I was stuck. I was just stuck.
I want to interrupt and clarify, because this is not victim blaming. This is not saying you deserve what you're experiencing, in saying that you were responsible, that you played a part. And I know you know this. I wanted to share this for the listener, that maybe in that situation, in that recreating, is that we feel comfortable in those environments and we recreate them because we feel that's what we deserve. That's all we know. Knowing, being in a different type of a relationship, we don't even know what that would look like if that's how you grew up. So you're not responsible in the sense that you deserved it, but you are empowered to know that you're responsible for changing that pattern, that belief, the things that you are telling yourself, that part. So expand on that a little bit. I think that's so empowering for people to understand you didn't deserve it.
Absolutely. Never.
You are responsible.
Right. Like never deserved any of it. Right. And yet I'm not entitled to a healthy, happy, loving relationship. I'm actually the uncontested author, the creator of it. I never knew that. I was always looking for a savior, for somebody to fix me. I'm broken. And so when you walk into the room as the token broken, like martyr, then your results will equal that. And so it took what it took for me to wake up. I always say, like, pain is not a punishment. I didn't deserve it, but it is a wake-up call. And I finally was like, what am I being woken up to so that I can shift it in me so that my experience will change? And boy, does it. So that's why I like to tell people, even if you messed up, even if you don't know, as long as you have the willingness and the intention, it doesn't take long to go from one area all the way to your dreams. It doesn't take a long time.
So how did that transition happen where you realized, okay, I'm meant for way more than working at the flower shop, even though I love it and I enjoy it? How did you wake up to coaching as your purpose?
Yes, I love this story because it's so good. So I graduated from transformational leadership training, and then you have an opportunity to come back in and and be of service. And so I went in and I volunteered. And I was having a blast. And Anthony actually volunteered at the same time. And it's kind of funny because that's where we really started to develop our relationship. But as I was giving and being of service, somebody in there, one of my students, saw something in me that I hadn't yet seen in myself. And so after graduation, we signed a contract that we can't exchange money for at least a year after with students. And so he reached out and said, hey, will you coach my, what is a estranged now wife and do couples coaching? And I thought to myself, whoa, I am not qualified. If you only knew. But yeah,
imposter syndrome.
Yes, he saw something. Thank God. And I said, well, we can't exchange, monies. So if you can come up with a way that I can be compensated that seems fair, then I'd be happy to. And he said, do you want airline miles? I said, I do, because I want
to go see Anthony.
So it was so great. And so I jumped in, and this individual, they're in Canada, which is really cool too, because a lot of my clients, I get to visit Canada and visit them. And so I started, and from then to now, they are happily married. They have a beautiful and with family. They a miracle baby, and all my business and referrals were given from that one couple.
When you started with them, they were at that point estranged.
She actually took her cat and moved to Costa Rica. and said,
oh my God.
they weren't even speaking, but this man, his name is Jerry. He's amazing. He just had this vision and he was not letting go of this woman and what he wanted. And he'd just been through transformation and she actually enrolled him in it. She'd been in it too, which is even sheer beautiful. And so I enrolled her and him into what it would look like. And they showed up every week consistently and we made it work. We made it happen.
So when you say who am I to do this? How did you move past those imposter syndrome thoughts to step into being able to enroll them in the vision that you also saw for them?
Right. So the first thing is have your own vision. And I was told this by mentors, Stacey, be connected to your vision, be connected to your vision. I'm thinking, how do you get one? I mean, what vision for your life? Like how do you get a vision? And for me, it was so funny because I had this little journal and I hadn't used it yet. And I opened it one evening and it was all about how to create your vision. And it gave you the step work, which I still use today and give to clients of how to actually start and create a vision. So I started, and the vision that I still have, which stands the test of time, is my vision is to support others with joy through the 12 steps in leadership in dispelling their expired beliefs that they have about themselves and others. And so everything I do and everything I be comes from that vision. And I wasn't even in that place when I created it. But once you have a vision, everything starts aligning to it. So if it matches my vision, I say yes. If it doesn't, I say no, thank you. And so that matched my vision. And so I jumped in. And since then, they referred and their referrals referred, because here's the thing about credentials or anything. People want results. So with results like mine, who needs the credentials when you start?
No one gets a vision and already is the person that can fulfill that vision, right? You get this vision and you see your purpose, then you have to become the person that can create that reality. So speak to that process of courage and stepping into becoming that person every day in little ways.
Yes. So how it started was I started to ask myself, who am I? And I picked the stretchiest, hardest 3 ways of being that I could think of, which is trusting, loving, committed. And I started every morning with, I'm committed to creating love, trust, and commitment to myself. And the prices that I'm willing to pay is looking bad, being wrong, being ignored, being abandoned, all of the things that I was desperately scared of before, I was just willing to offer them up now, because what you resist persists. And I did not want any more persisting in those departments. And so for 30 days, 60 days, a year, every single morning, I was connected to what I'm committed to creating and the prices I'm willing to pay. And every single morning I did that. And in the evening, I would check, did I create that? Some days I did, some days I didn't. Some days I paid prices, some days I didn't. But I was tracking and looking at, when did I fall out of loving me again? When did I fall out of trusting me again? When did I sell out on myself and no longer become committed to myself and my vision? And so I course corrected every day, one day at a time, because that's all we have. And I just put one foot in front of the other. And before you know it, I tell clients, do this for 30 days. Your entire life will change. It will change. It has to change because it's 90% intention. Whenever we have an intention, the mechanism will appear and you will get the results. It's 100% guaranteed.
Did you have naysayers or people along the way that were saying to you, who are you to coach people on marriage and 10 out of 10 relationships?
No, keep in mind, I had spent 22 years drinking. And towards the end, I was drinking quite a bit because I was hiding and not wanting to look at who I was and what, being responsible for my life. So 22 years of drinking can make a skeptic out of anyone. And I'm sure that people looked and thought, wow, okay, maybe crazy. But really my biggest naysayer, it was my mom, because my mom.
Oh, that breaks my heart. Go ahead.
Yes. And which is another blessing in disguise, because my dad has always operated, it's a family legacy of fear. And so my mom thought, if I give her all my fears and I show her everything to be afraid of, then that'll keep her safe. But the thing about fears, you don't have one and I have one and I share mine with yours. Now we've doubled it. And before you know, we're just spreading fear. And so I came from that. And that was the legacy that I had to break. And so my biggest naysayer at first was, it's like, how is that possible? Your life doesn't look perfect. People, everything is not shiny. So how dare you? How can you do this? But not from a place of malice, but from a place of love, because she wanted to keep me safe, right? I always tell this story. It's one of my favorites, and but it was this pivotal moment where I have two little like Chihuahua rescue dogs. They're terribly behaved. Terribly behaved. I'm not a dog person. Figured that out the hard way. And my mom came to visit. And keep in mind, I was still new to developing this 10 out of 10 relationship with her. Now it's like beyond my wildest dreams, beautiful. But in the beginning, it was hard. And so she came to visit, and, there was so many feelings and things that I got to clear up and really stand for who I am and enroll her in this version of me, because it's my responsibility to enroll people in, this is me. This is what you can expect. This is what you can count on. And I hadn't done that before. And so she comes and she comes in, flies in, spends the night, wakes up in the morning. She wakes up before me, and my dogs it was snowy or rainy out, and my dogs had pooped on the floor. And she covers it up with a little Kleenex napkin. And, she has this like pursed lip face, and she said, you need to take care of that in the kitchen. And I was like, what? And she's like, your dogs pooped on the floor. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, all I know, she basically alluded to, if anyone knew that you let your dogs poop on your floor, they would not want to be coached by you. Man, in that moment, I felt like that little girl again. I was like, oh, yeah, here I am again. I knew it. And I stopped for a moment. And this is why it's so important to condition yourself so that you're ready when life lifes you. Is I had the tools and the armor. I was like, I am a loving, trusting, committed woman, period. And it doesn't matter if a dog poops on my floor or my neighbor doesn't like me. I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. And I'm going to enroll her in this. So in that moment, I said, Mom, I'm going to pick up the poop and we're going to go through it figuratively and literally. I'll meet you on the couch. And in that moment, I sat down with her and I had an opportunity to clear and enroll her in this version of me. And then I just got to show up consistently. And there you go. Now, our relationship is beyond my wildest dreams.
That is so beautiful and speaks so strongly to the fact that you don't need anyone to change to live the life of your dreams. Everyone else can stay exactly as they are. You don't need them to be any different.
No. And, it's funny you say that, because I have an almost 18-year-old, an almost 22-year-old.
Me too.
And my 3-year-old on purpose, right? But my older boys' dad, he hasn't changed a bit, nor does he have to. And we had a decade of mediation, only speaking through email. It was awful, actually. And now, we have a 10 out of 10. We'll be celebrating our 18-year-old's graduation in the backyard here in just a month or two together. However, he hasn't changed a bit. But why is it now we can have amazing co-parenting and relationship? Because I'm different. Because I'm choosing to be different. That man is the same. I am different. I am the uncontested author. And so you can take something, prior to this leadership training, we were going through mediation for the 100th time and only spoke for the last 5 years, third-party emails. And now, we just, my 22-year-old graduated with a triple bachelor's, and I was with my ex-in-laws hanging out, and it was beautiful.
So give me an example for the listener that is thinking, I don't understand. I'm not tracking. How is he not changed? And yet you have, does that mean you've become a doormat? I know those are stories the listener's thinking. So give me an example of how it feels for you and how it's different for you, even though it's not different for him.
Right. So whatever we transmit, we get. And because I was always transmitting this, I don't love myself, something's wrong with me, nobody's going to get me vibe, then I always got that. And so once I stepped into this 10 out of 10 relationship, so like I like who I'm seeing in the mirror, I'm showing up consistently for myself, I'm clearing. So it's important that people understand that when you make a mess, like when I decided to not show up as a 10 out of 10, one, I didn't know how, but it still doesn't negate my responsibility that I have a responsibility to go in and enroll people and clean up my mess. So I had an opportunity with my ex to, clear my side. And I wasn't worried about him or because I know who I am and the power of who I'm being. And so I cleared that. And I have yet to have somebody not receive it well. When you show up responsible, like, hey, I want to acknowledge the fact that I have not always spoke kindly of you. What was more important to me was being right and being heard. And the price that you pay is, we don't trust each other. The price I pay is we have a dysfunctional relationship. But moving forward, you can count on me to be this woman, to have conversations with you, to be kind, to be tolerant. And then it's my job to hold up my end of the bargain. So I did that. And then I held up my end of the bargain, and that changes everything. He's the same guy. And what I realized is maybe my stories weren't all right about this.
Yeah.
Maybe
Right.
because I was looking out of the eyes of somebody who didn't love themselves, that my view was distorted. Maybe because I was showing up in all this fear, that it convoluted my ability to hear things the way they were actually being said to me.
Absolutely. And how has that impacted the relationship that you have with your kids?
Like, it's still a work in progress, right? Because especially with my oldest, and I mean boys at that age, I can only imagine. I've never been a teenage boy that I know of, but I could imagine, like here's the thing is, it doesn't matter when or if someone else chooses or shifts. It only matters that I'm committed to a lifelong, commitment of this. And when I tell somebody they can count on me for this or that, I mean what I say. And if I make a mistake, I immediately own it and clean it up. And I recalibrate and I shift. And so for them, it's beyond my wildest dreams because I just made a commitment. It's a commitment. I used to think I wasn't multifaceted. I thought if I was in overwhelm or if I felt pressure, I'm out. I give up. I can't do it. I'm too stupid. Something like that. Now I realize we are multifaceted. I can be scared shitless and committed. I can be devastated and committed. I can be beyond excited and not focused and committed. Committed is a choice. And so today I get up and I commit. And I choose because I choose, not because my mom said so, because my ex thinks this. I don't choose because of anything outside of me. I choose because I choose.
Absolutely. That's amazing. When did you have the breakthrough with the business that you knew this was the path? At what point in your journey did you know this is right?
Okay. So I meet this couple, I start coaching, and Anthony and it was like a whirlwind. I knew I wanted to have more children. I just didn't think it was possible at the time. He had never been married, wanted a child. I was like, woohoo. So I had just turned 40. TikTok, let's get going. Wow. It was going to take longer than it did. It didn't take long at all. And I ended up having my dream births at home, all natural at 41 years old, which I'm very proud of because I designed it the way that I wanted to have it. And it was like, most people when they have a baby, it's like they lose all this time or they're overwhelmed. It's like, for me, I had an abundance of time because I made that decision with Melanie, who owned the flower shop. I said, I'm going to bet it all on me. And I'm going to train the next person. And I was also doing some coaching for a gal, a breathwork coach out of Reno. just on the side. And so I always have like 3 avenues of income. So I was really,
I want to clarify. Like, so your business consulting background was in more on the marketing side, is what I'm understanding. So you coached
marketing. Yep. It was almost like bar rescue, where I would see small business owners usually miss the wave of social media marketing and technology. And so they were getting taken advantage of. I would come in, do a sweep, clean it up, and then connect them with individuals that had integrity. And so they were off and running. That was really what I did over and over again. Yeah.
which is a lot more tactical than what you do now.
Yes. Yes.
So when you go ahead, when you bet on yourself,
I told her, and then I told the coach that I was coaching for in Reno, I said, I'm going to go all in on my business. I'm going to jump out, all the way out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to bet on myself. And I'll keep in mind, my baby was like 7 days old. So I was like, here we go. And because I knew, as a seasoned mom, I knew that first year is the easiest year. When you're feeding,
they don't move.
Yeah. So I literally would be like this, and you wouldn't even know that I was feeding him and he was sleeping and I'm coaching.
Were you scared? Were you scared when you bet on yourself?
Oh,
or were you 100% confident?
Terrified. I was shaking, afraid, but it's like I prayed and I was like, okay, God, can you do this again for me? And you do for me what I haven't been able to do for myself if I just bet on myself. And if I just have 100% certainty and trust that you'll catch me. And every time I do that, boom. But I'm telling you, it's terrifying. You have to do it afraid. You just have to do it afraid. So I do everything afraid. I do it all afraid. And I went in, and it's like, I hustled. I showed up. I put myself out there. I allowed all the referrals to come in. I grew and I stretched, and I joined a mastermind with Garen Jones that changed my life. And I turned myself inside out over and over and over again. And I live and breathe this work. And so that's what it did. It changed me. It had me showing up, being the kind of woman that runs her own company, being the kind of woman that starts a transformational leadership community.
Yeah. Speak to the woman that's listening, thinking that her journey, not being perfect and shiny, is the reason she can't create the life of her dreams. 10 out of 10 relationships, 10 out of 10 business. Speak to her and how that is a lie.
Right. It is absolutely a lie, because I wasn't willing to be messy before. I wasn't willing to let you see me look terrible. Right. And being that I was a new mom again, I'm not looking great. But here's the thing. I just became honest and transparent, and my authentic self just came forward. And I started generating and sorting clients that were old midwives, retired midwives were coming, because that's the vibe I was putting out, and just women empowerment and stepping into it. And so I was attracting all of these clients that are super powerful women that wanted to have a 10 out of 10 relationship. So the fact that I would say, hey, there's a chance that Soul would wake up, or please go right ahead. In fact, they encouraged me to. So I just kept generating support after support after support, because I was willing to say, I'm going to be messy here. We might have to reschedule this if you're open to that. But I just put it all out there. Everybody showed up for me because I was showing up for myself.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Are there any, I know we talk about books all the time on this podcast, and what book, the transformational leadership type programs, which I have also had some experience with, are so much far beyond anything that you'll read in a book. But are there books and resources that you feel have also helped you in your journey?
Yeah. So I have my core mentors, and I'm very fortunate that now I work really with them, and they come into the community and train our community, which is like mind blowing to me, because sitting in this transformational training, thinking one day that my mentors would pick us and work exclusively with us was never on my radar. But Michael Strassner happens to be one of them, and he's
amazing.
Living on the Skinny Branches, his book, go ahead, try to live on the skinny branches, commit to it. It's wild. It's fun. So I love his resources, Lisa Kalman, Judith Rich, Lynn Sheridan. Those are the top four. They all are published authors. I have all their books. I love them. They really started that foundation. And then Garen Jones's book, too. I mean, he runs off the philosophy that it's like change your mindset, change your life. That's the name of his book. And all of those mentors and all of those books, I highly recommend.
It's interesting. We think that we see people that are living their life in an inspiring way, and we think they must have something or know something that we don't. They must be more skilled. They must have talents that I don't have. And I'll never forget being in a coaching program with Michael Strasner and having him say, I coached Lewis Howes. My mind was blown. I thought, wait, I'm getting coaching from the same person that at some point Lewis Howes felt he needed coaching from? Why am I thinking that I can't do big things like he has? It's just an interesting thing when, I guess, speak to investing in yourself and investing in your growth. How has that transformed your life?
So it's all about, I say your number with yourself, right? So I alluded to the fact that I spent most of my life, I would say a 4 out of 10. So the results, the relationships, and the life I had was a 4. Nothing wrong with being a 4. In fact, my value wasn't less at all. It's like I attribute it to this like tall 10-story building where the first floor and the 10th floor have the same address, but when you look out the window, completely different experience. Being in the 10th house penthouse, it costs more. There's more responsibility to it. You got to show up differently in order to live there. And that's what it is with your number with yourself. And so that's the difference, is just being interested and willing and curious about what is it like to live on the 10th floor, essentially. What's it like to be a 10 out of 10 woman? And it's individual. So my 10 looks different maybe than your 10, but that's because I'm the uncontested author. So it's really like defining what's a 10 out of 10 for me. And then when you reach it, then you get to go to another level, like redefine your 10. I'm in the process of redefining my 10 with myself.
Yeah. I want to hear about some of your 10 out of 10 life experiences that you've experienced at this point up to this now.
Yeah. So one of the biggest ones is all of the Canadians that I had the pleasure of coaching. And I hadn't been out of the country for a long time. And, new baby. And we all had to get passports, do all the things. And even last year in 2024, Anthony and I went to 5 or 6 different states, a whole nother country. We did so much traveling with a 2-year-old, right? Like so many times people say you can't travel with a 2-year-old. You can't travel. Like there's so many limiting beliefs. And it's like we traveled everywhere. We did all the things. And this is how wild it is. So we get to Canada and I end up generating, because my relationships are 10 out of 10. One of my clients, her name is Heather. She's beautiful. She said, she offered her $2 million condo. Have at it. Just stay there. I'm going to be visiting my daughter. And I'm like, oh, wow. The old me could never accept that. To say, okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And I said, wow, thank you. That original couple, Jerry and Barbara, said, we have an additional vehicle. Why don't you just have it? It was a Range Rover. Okay, so now all of a sudden, this girl from Casper, Wyoming is driving a Range Rover in a $2 million condo in Canada. Like that's the 10 out of 10. Like anywhere I go, when I show up, I'm walking into a room as the creator of the experience. I'm not saying that that's there for me. And so I generate it. Relationships are currency. If you want to be rich, have 10 out of 10 relationship with yourself and others.
Absolutely. I want to know, listening to your story and hearing about some of the things that you've been through and knowing that you coach people on having 10 out of 10 marriages, and how what you grew up seeing as marriage was, maybe speak a little bit to what you saw, because you haven't expanded a ton on what you saw besides your dad was an alcoholic, but how that is the literal, what you grew up with and what you experienced up until the last 6 years, or the literal opposite of what you're creating. So I want to hear you share about how people can take their mess and make that their message, because it's obvious that you're wanting to heal other people's lives in the way that you saw the most damage growing up.
Yeah.
Or had the most destruction.
How better to know what you want than look at what you don't want that's right in front of your face? Because a lot of times people, you say, what do you want? They're like, draw a blank. Well, look at what you don't want and then go the opposite direction. It's pretty easy, right? So growing up, it's once again, it's this family legacy of, women, my grandma, my mother, maybe my great grandma, for all I know, chose men that didn't value them. And then they didn't value themselves and they became a victim to it. And it was always this, my values on the outside of me. I always tell people, you're not a used car that starts depreciating. It's like, look at yourself. When look at a little picture of yourself and ask yourself, when did I start losing my value? 3 years old when I didn't put a bag back in the trash? Like, was it 5 years old when somebody looked at me and told me I was ugly? Is that when you started depreciating? Because the answer is no. We would never look at a baby and say, ew, what a time suck. That, it has no value. But yet we do that to ourselves. And so growing up, I come from this legacy of, it's almost like man haters, because the man did you wrong and you have full authority to hate them. And it wasn't aligned with me, but it was everywhere. And so for me, I wanted different, and going through all and utilizing all the tools, that's how I started to develop it. But when it comes to looking back, my experience is my greatest asset. I never thought all the shit that I had been through would then turn around and I could utilize every facet of it to not only build trust with somebody else who's in the same mess that I was, but also know how to actually get out of it, because I did it. And so now it's like, how could I hate my past? How could I wish it different when I use every bit of it as, my greatest asset?
I think that it's so easy to think that because of the mess of our past, who are we? Because we think that the people that are making a difference in the world in these different ways had it perfect. And yet that's exactly the key to creating the life that you want to create, the impact, the legacy that you want to leave. It's tied exactly to your darkest moment in your life. It's tied to that.
And one thing that's big is I was very judgy. So come from a long line of judgy women. And judgment, and I thought judgment kept me safe. Basically, that's what I was told. And so I judged myself harshly, and I judged everybody else harshly. Whenever you're in judgment, you take yourself out of being able to be of influence. So I had no influence on anyone. It wasn't until I took a good look at my self-righteousness, my judgment, and I shifted it to curiosity, and I was willing to drop it. Now I could be of influence. And so I just trust that people see my authentic self and that they understand that I am showing up and my intention is to support them. And because I come from that place, unanimously, that's all I receive. So I don't worry about, now I have, a little bit of time behind me, but I don't worry about people, places, and things. So at this point where I'm at, I still have all the same normal life stuff that lifes me, but I can shift quickly. So what used to take me out for years now can take me out for a minute, 2 minutes, because I have the power to choose. And that's everything. That's freedom.
It's interesting how we are judgmental and we don't realize that that's really rooted in us being judgmental of ourselves. If we're judgmental toward the outside world, we're probably 10 times more judgmental towards ourselves. And it's in giving ourselves grace and not being judgmental towards ourselves that we're able to give compassion to others.
Absolutely. I judged my mom. I really did, because I wanted to be better then. That's what got me into a lot of trouble, is I thought the way out was to be better than. So showing up with this chip on my shoulder, I'm going to be better than my dad, I'm going to be better than my mom, does not get you better than, it gets you the same. What you resist will persist. And so I got an opportunity to change being better than to being loving, unconditionally loving, to being tolerant, to being the author of my life, to utilizing forgiveness and looking and allowing people to love me and to see them. So now when I hear my mom, she hasn't changed a bit either. But the person that I hear now is the true authentic version because I'm my true authentic version. And I know that when she shows up like afraid or in judgment, that she's coming from a loving place. And I'm under afraid. And so all she's ever wanted is to know that she matters. And now I have the wherewithal to say you matter and I mean it and show up consistently. And I get to do that for everyone. Why? Because I do that for myself first thing. If I skip,
that's amazing.
It does not turn out well for anyone else either.
Mm-hmm. Speak to that too. Oh my gosh. There's so many people that struggle with people not being supportive and thinking that's a reflection of what they're capable of doing, and reframing that to they're trying to keep you safe. They're trying to protect you. That brings so much peace. And what unlocked that for you? Just loving yourself, just the programs, or was there anything specific?
Well, yeah, it was really loving myself, but also I'll use my dad as an example. So how do you have a 10 out of 10 relationship with somebody who hurt you the most? And that was really tricky. So when I first got sober, I hadn't had all my memories back, and he was not well.
Now, he sexually assaulted you.
Yep. He was not well, and I didn't have all my memories until about a year and a half into getting sober. And so I'm about 4 months sober, and he lives in the same town as I do. And so I was visiting because I'd heard he was really unwell, and he was wanting me to take him to get alcohol, and everything was just falling apart. And I was in self-preservation. And at first I took it personal, like, don't you care? Like, I'm suffering here and you're wanting to put me in jeopardy. I became a victim to it again. And fortunately, I was surrounding myself with people that were in a place that I wanted to be in. So after a meeting, I stopped and I was talking to this guy, and I was telling him about my situation. And he said that one of the most profound things that sticks with me is like, sometimes you got to give people the dignity to live the way that they want. And because I always wished for people to be different, which is not love, by the way, and I always wanted everything to change, that was my problem. I wasn't in an acceptance and surrender and giving people the dignity to live the way that they wanted. So at that point, I went back to my dad and I said, you really want to live this way? And he said, yes. And so I got an opportunity to accept that, and that's not for me. And so I said, if you ever want something different, let me know. He does not. He's still alive today. He doesn't want anything different. So a 10 out of 10 is loving somebody enough and giving them the dignity to live the way that they want, and then passing on it. It doesn't fit my vision. And so that's what a 10 out of 10 looks like with some of the hardest people in my life.
When we know we want that for ourselves, right? We know we want others to give us the dignity to live out the lives that we want to live in the way that we want to live them. But yeah, we don't realize that we're not giving that to others because it doesn't fit in the box that we think it should be.
Right. Yeah. It's like really understanding what is my business and what isn't. And it's like anything from, what do they say, from here back is my business, anything out is not. And I was not minding my business anywhere. I thought because you were related to me, that gave me, I could just jump right in to what you had going on. Yeah, fix, martyr, all the things. And it's like, no, just look inward. Start here. Like, I'm the most valuable player on my team. And really, one of the big takeaways I got from working with Garen was to tap into that higher version of myself. And turns out everyone has a higher version, even my dad. At first, I thought, well, not him. He doesn't. But everyone has a higher self. And he asked me once, he said, if your higher self was talking to your dad's higher self, what would he be saying to you? And that was really hard because I did not see him in that way. But I allowed myself to see, his best version. And when I was being groomed when I was little, one of the things he said over and over again is he would ask me hundreds of times a day, who's your best friend? Who's your best friend? Because if I said you, dad, then that kept me tied to him and I wouldn't say what was going on behind the scenes. And I was 4 or 5. I had no idea. And so right then, my idea of love and best friendship was very much skewed and very much tainted. And so I developed that and carried that with me my whole life. But when I tapped into what would my higher self tapping into his want me to know, immediately I heard, be your own best friend. What would your life look like if you were just your own best friend? And I was like, wow, my whole life would look so different if I showed up instead of being like, will you be my best friend? Will you be nice to me? Will you help me? Will you change my life? Will you fix me? And I started showing up being my own best friend. It was like everything changed.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. What are you working on next? What are your next big 10 out of 10 life goals and projects that you're excited about?
Yes. So, kind of an empty nester. So my older boys are off to college very, very soon. And we have Soul and he's 3 years old. And so Anthony and I can go anywhere we want, whenever we want. So the next step is like, do we want Wyoming to be our home base? Do we want to get an RV and travel? Do we want to get a secondary home? Do I want to move to not California, but Canada? What do I want? And so we're in that phase of I'm open to the next steps, right? And I'm going to be the kind of woman that gets to uncover that, which is scary, but also thrilling. And then we're actively growing our community. One thing I realized about transformational work is you go in, it's like you rip the Band-Aid off, you're looking at it, and then you start kind of cleaning it up, but then you go out in the world again and life hits you. And you don't have, unless you're like I was, which was like, I got to figure this out right away. Most people go back to the drift. They go back to the same old, because it's really enticing to be in that comfort zone. And so I developed with Anthony a community where you can't. So there's a 2-day intensive, right? And like you rip the Band-Aid off, you look at everything, and then you have a community and you have people like Michael Strasner right by your side who won't allow you to flail. You still get to experience your experience, but now you have that support. And so that's what I wanted. That's what Anthony wanted. And so don't wait for somebody to give it to you. Go out and create it. So we created what we wanted, and now we're offering it to, people who want to live a life of abundance, to live a 10 out of 10 life, to be on the skinny bretches.
That's amazing. What is the best advice that you've ever received that's been transformational?
Man, I have received so much advice, but the one that stinks in the most is I grew up in a dance studio, and I had a tumbling teacher. Her name is Dorothy. And, I was surrounded by so many angels that really showed up for me as I look in my life. And she had a sign on the wall that said, never say can't. And as a kid, okay, you look and you're like, oh, can't say can't. But really, that's where it started. Like she instilled that words plant seeds, words matter. Mindset is everything. And whatever you speak and say, you plant the seed, it will grow. So I shifted all of that for myself. Instead of I need, it's a get to. I get to go to work. It's amazing how that changes everything. And so there's little simple things that we can shift with how we're speaking, how we're thinking about ourselves. And so, never say can't is a great one.
Yes, I love that. The word just is disempowering. There's so many things that we say to ourselves that are so shoulding. Yeah, you're shoulding all over yourself. Every time you say I should, you're shoulding all over yourself. Just think about that. What is one thing that you wish people knew better about you and your life experience?
Oh, man. That they would know about me, that I care so deeply, and that I am for the collective, and that I really am a stand for freedom, and that I believe I call myself Captain Freedom, because anybody can come from where I came from. Anyone could do it. Anyone can do it. I am not special or unique. Luckily, we call it terminally unique. I am not terminally unique anymore. I am just like everyone else. And, if you have a desire, you're supposed to have it. And if you want to figure out your vision, you can. And so I just really want to be the permission for people to go out there and get it. Whatever you want, you can get it.
That's so beautiful. Where can people find you? I know listeners are going to want to connect with you, and I know you are meant to transform lives in a bigger capacity than just marriages. So where can people find you?
People can find impactleadershipcommunity.com. Our website's always a work in progress, because we started building the plane as we fly it. Once again, there it is, right? Stacey Coach 10 on Instagram, and then you can find Stacey Reed just about anywhere. I'm not actually the only one in Wyoming, but I'm the only one pretty much present in transformational work. So,
you're amazing. I knew you would be amazing. I know you're connected to Anthony, and I know that you guys are both. You've changed my life. Anthony has changed my life, and I know you're both going to change so many more people's lives. So I'm excited for your future. Thank you for spending the day with me.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
What if the part of your story that you've been hiding is actually the key to setting someone else free? Stacey's story is the reminder that we all need. Our power doesn't come from perfection. It comes from owning the pain, rewriting the narrative, and choosing to rise. Whether it's healing your relationship with yourself, rebuilding life after loss, or daring to dream again after everything has fallen apart, you are not behind and you are not broken. Your life has prepared you for your mission in ways that you may not fully see or understand yet. But one day, someone will say, because you shared your story, I found the courage to rewrite mine. So before you go, I want to leave you with this question. What if the mess that you've been through is the message someone else is still praying to hear?